Guys, these are the 8 pillars of any business narrative. In this video, I'm going to get into a lot more detail about why these pillars are critical. And if you master these pillars, you can structure your sales pitches, you can structure your sales presentations, you can structure your email marketing, you can structure your ads, you can structure your website and ensure that you have a congruent narrative that is constantly reinforcing your message to make you a top performer in whatever you're doing in the world of B2C or B2B sales. So guys, at Sales Inc., as you know, we've run campaigns for over 25 different industries. I'm talking local service-based accounting businesses and law firms, all the way to massive multi-billion-dollar cloud players. And the reason we're able to do that at such a high level and get paid good money for it is because the sales process doesn't change too much. It's the story that changes. It's the narrative. Now, the very first thing that I do in every single meeting once a client has signed on the line that is dotted is actually break down their narrative so I can figure out what goes into my sales pitches, what goes into the team's presentations, what goes into the content, what goes, again, into the digital infrastructure that is going to support the content. What this actually does as well, if you're an owner, this is really important to you. If you're a leader, if you're a founder, if you're a commercial director, it ensures that your sales team and your marketing team are going to the market with the same message. I mean, how many times has marketing generated a lead and the sales team's come back and been like, they have no idea what we do. They have no idea what we're all about. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to segment that message in a sales process yet. That's something we can look at later. But right now, what I want to focus on is breaking down those 8 pillars that I've shared with you at the start of the video, getting into some details so that while you're extracting this information, whether it's by yourself or in a group environment or in some sort of workshop, you really understand the context and the importance of it. So let's get started. So the first thing, guys, is key people and why they're credible. Now, this is going to vary depending on the business. So when I say key people, let's say you're an SMB, let's say you're a founder-led business, let's say you're doing, for example, between $1 million to $50 million worth of revenue, and you've got a pretty intimately sized business. It's really important, if you're a rep, that you can really talk about the founders of the business and their pedigree and the story that led them to this particular point. So I'll give you an example, guys. We work with a lot of cybersecurity vendors over here, different products, different solutions, and the CISOs that we're talking to, or even the CFOs who we're talking to, they're getting smashed day in, day out by different organizations and different solutions from the world of cybersecurity. Now, one thing that we know helps cut through is if the pedigree of the solutions architect or the pedigree of the founder is really stated quite clearly. Maybe they've got a background from the likes of an IBM. Maybe they've done some work in the field of intelligence. Whatever it might be, really get to the bottom of who is driving the solutions. But it's not only about the founders, to be honest with you. Sometimes it can be about the leadership. So let's say you've got a really, really big organization. Let's say you are an AWS. Obviously, you're not going to go out there and talk about Jeff Bezos's visions. It's not really relatable. But for example, let's say you're booking a meeting for somebody internally. Talk about the pedigree of that particular person. If you are the product, if you're at the end of the day, let's say doing founder-led sales, take the time to say, this is who I am, this has been my journey, this is how I've gotten to this particular point that inspired me to create this solution. This brings me to my second point. This is where the transition takes place. What are the philosophies and the motives of those key people? Typically, it's that journey, okay? It's that hero's journey, if you will, that gives an insight into what's motivating you. Guys, I know you've probably heard me say this before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. Sharing your goals with somebody is nothing compared to sharing your motivations with them. If I come up to you and I say, hey, I want to run a marathon, you might look at me and say, whatever. But if I come up to you and I say, hey, you know what? I've always had this kind of niggling itch that I've wanted to run a marathon, but I've been a bit scared to do it. And I wanted to prove to myself that I can run a marathon. And further to that, I'm doing it for a cause. People are going to sit there, and instead of sitting there and saying, sure, whatever, they're actually now going to be rooting for you. So guys, that transition from the founder story or the leadership story to the motivations is really, really important. And this brings me to the next point. There should be a seamless transition. So through your motivation, it's now a simple transition to the problem you solve. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm providing you with some level of sales education. I can sit there and talk about my pedigree, how I run this company, how I've built multiple businesses, how I've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. I'll then transition to my motivations, which are pretty simple, to be honest with you, is that I feel that we need to raise selling standards, because when we don't raise selling standards, BDMs and SDRs have a terrible experience. Prospects have a terrible experience, particularly when you're getting the greasy sales pressury vibes. And the businesses actually suffer as well. And when you've got this ecosystem or this vicious cycle of suffering, I think it just makes the world a worse place and it makes life harder. So that's my motivation. So the problem that I want to solve is the problem of having disorganized sales teams without structure, having disorganized businesses without process. That's the problem that I solve. We give you that process and we give you the personnel so that you can get more revenue, more sales, connect with the people that you want to connect with. So guys, have a think about that. What is the actual problem that you're solving? Guys, this brings me to my next point. Who are your main competitors? Now, you don't necessarily need to incorporate this into a pitch, but by knowing who your main competitors are, it allows you to position your solution appropriately. Now, I really want to stress this point. You might have created a unicorn. You might be doing something that nobody else is doing, but you still have competitors. You still have people out there fighting and vying for the same budget that you have. So I'll give you an example. Obviously, we run sales. And we sit there and say, well, there's no sales business like us out here in the country. By the same token, that money could be going to a recruiter who is shopping for sales talent. That money could be going to a marketing agency, which is just generating average leads, for example. The way we see it is they are our competitors and we need to be mindful of where our budget could be going. So take the time to identify your main competitors, guys. Be really mindful about it. Think outside the box and really consider who could be taking food off your plate, who is trying to fundamentally solve the same problem that you're trying to solve. Now, this is the fun part. This is what we call the PODs. Some of you might call these the USPs. So your points of difference or your unique selling points. You need to understand what are your points of difference, okay? What makes you different? Now, guys, think outside the box on this a little bit as well. The points of difference are not just around price. The points of difference are not just around features and benefits. It can be in the way that you deliver. It can be in your service level assurances or your service level guarantees. It can be your customer service. A lot of the points of difference that we really focus on are to do more with the level of support that we give people, the level of love and care that our clients are willing to give to their prospects if the market deals with our clients. So think about that. Chances are that you're already doing things in your heart of hearts, you're doing things in your day-to-day that already separate you from other people. Everybody's different, every business is different. Really think about those things that you're doing differently, guys. Really have a good think about it. Now, funnily enough, guys, we haven't talked about any features or benefits yet. Your points of difference allow you to transition into what we call the technical deliverables and the features that come with those technical deliverables. So what am I actually going to get? I can't believe I still need to say this in 2025, guys, but the vast majority of sales engineers, the vast majority of salespeople, the vast majority of founder-led businesses are still focusing on technicals. We do get the technicals, but as you can see in this example, it's number 6. So what do I get? What are the things that you've built? Okay, what are the things that I'm going to receive? What are the benefits of these features? But again, this is important, but it should never be the first step. As you can see now, we've built this beautiful story, this story that talks about the founders and their inspirations and the points of difference and how we now deliver that technically. Those technicals need context, guys. Don't come out of the gate straight away focusing on your technicals. People love stories. We've been telling stories since the beginning of time. Don't skip the story. Following that, guys, You've talked about your technical deliverables. What's the company you keep? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you've built some tech. Who have you built it in conjunction with? Maybe you're hosting it with Amazon. Maybe you're hosting it with Microsoft Azure. Maybe you've got some wonderful clients already. Maybe you're working with a government body. Maybe you've landed a big fish or a brand name. Think about that, guys. Think about who are you keeping within your circle. This is essentially a form of social proof. If you do not have this, and I will tell you this, and this might sound a little bit painful, if you cannot speak about the company you keep, then you need to go and watch the video about values, and you need to go actually out and find an organization that you can add value to. And by adding value to an organization and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go record some content to you, or I'm going to give you some complimentary consultation, whatever it might be, build that body of work that allows you to say, hey, we've worked with these kinds of organizations, and these kinds of organizations, because people don't often like to move first. People like to know that other people trust you. That's why Google reviews have been so important over the years. That's why testimonials are so important. Who is the company that you keep? Who's messing with you, whether they're a partner, whether they're a client, so on and so forth. And guys, the final pillar of your narrative, and this actually comes back to your deliverables. This comes back to your technical product and features. What are the guarantees and risks that come with your service or your solution? What is it? So the guarantees are, this is what we're going to do. Bang, 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 whatever it is. This is what we assure you of. We're going to get you from A to B. But let's be honest, nobody has a crystal ball. You're not always going to get from A to B. A lot of the time, it's not even your fault. But if you can come out and talk about the risks, okay, if you can be totally frank about those risks, then all of a sudden, what you're going to do is reduce the length of the sales cycle, and you're not going to have to handle objections. Handling objections to me, and there's a lot of videos about how do I handle objections? Guys, F that. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now. As soon as you start handling objections, now you're playing defense, right? And you're in this exchange. And people might say, well, they're buying questions. And sure, maybe sometimes that's true. But if you're totally frank about what could go wrong and how you look to mitigate that, and what the absolute downside, worst case, best case scenario is for a client that signs up with you, now all of a sudden, you've been forthcoming, you've been transparent. And the best part about that is you're keeping them in a buying state of mind. Think about this as well, guys. A lot of the time, the people who are going to buy from you, they're already looking at 2 or 3 other solutions, right? 2 other 3 main competitors. Now, if those competitors are in objection handling mode, if those competitors are trying to sweep risk under the rug, do you think the prospect is not going to pick up on that when you've been so forthcoming? If you are honest about that and forthcoming about the risks and how you mitigate those risks, you are actually going to give yourself a competitive advantage, and your sales cycle, as I said, will reduce. I'll give you a quick example, guys. So we used to sell a lot of stock market research and funds when my business partner Nicholas and I first started out together. And yeah, that's where we were. We're in the financial markets after the GFC. So when we were selling these newsletters, people were like, well, how do I know that your recommendations or the recommendations of the firm are going to be accurate? And the truth of the matter is we didn't. And instead of spinning that, we would be proactive and be like, hey, but before you sign up or before you give this a go, before I tell you what the price might be, I want you to know that there are no guarantees with this service. Historically, for every 5 recommendations we've made, 3.5 to 4 out of 5 on average have done well, but there is the chance that there is that one recommendation that's not going to do well. However, it's really important that our recommendations do well. That's why we've been in business for so long, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we encourage diversity, whatever it might be, however you're looking to offset that risk. But now when they go and speak to the other research house or they go and speak to the other fund manager who's not being forthcoming about that, selling a pipe dream and telling everybody that everything's going to be okay, you're going to make a return. Guys, that person who is not being forthcoming is actually doing you a favor. So look, I hope I haven't harped on about that for too long, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll start sharing more content about how now you can apply this to process. If you haven't checked out our sales pitch videos. And if you haven't checked out some of our other videos, go check them out because it's going to give you something that you can apply these principles to. But hey, if you've enjoyed these videos and if you want more insights, please give us a like. We really appreciate it. We've got a small channel over here right now and the support has been fantastic. Please subscribe if you're up for it. We look to add as much value to the community as possible. So collectively, we can raise selling standards together and we can feel great about what we're doing by giving our prospects and our partners better experiences. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Talk soon.